Michael Bednar here from the Christian Left. We'll be talking about existentialist morality today. This is based on an article last week by Michael Sean Winters, on Pope Francis is right. The Catholic Church can't go backwards. I posted a comment that the cynical proof of the existence of God is that people find grace and joy in the Church regardless of the error of its bishops and theologians, especially those who wish to preserve tradition and their traditional personal prerogatives. Reform is not having any more success in ruining the Church than the bishops and the cardinals have had in the prior 1930 years since the first Pentecost, but not for lack of trying. Meaning that, yes, there hasn't been Vatican II was not the ruination of everything. In fact, it's the, if there's any ruination, it's the traditionalists. So modern habits of mind may even help bring the Church into the 21st century, or at least the 19th, shedding the toxic asexual bias and related misogyny that has bothered it from St. Paul to St. Augustine to St. John Paul. The truth is that, for the most part, the Church has reformed itself when it had no other choice. It can be trusted to do so in the future. That was the promise, that the gates of hell would not prevail against it. In other words, it would change rather than not change. The gates of hell seem to be within the Church in a lot of times. So the Church has seen the cross in a variety of ways, seeing it transactionally cause much of the harm in both Catholicism and Protestantism. The Trinity is one in Christ. They encountered human suffering in a way that we can now relate to God. In other words, it wasn't for God, it was for us. The Latin Mass, which is, and the Mass is the, as we say, the extension of the sacrifice of Christ, are featured in the debates. Those who hold a grudge about how Francis is dealing with the extraordinary rite, also called the Tridentine, come to these debates in force. I mean, it's the first comment you will see on debates about Francis is, "We want our Mass back." The Mass is a symbol for the past rejection of all things rational in the life of the Church. The 1/3 of the council, led by Carol Wojtyla, the Pope John Paul bishops are still rejectionists, but as I said earlier today in another video, they're retiring because they have to, and Francis is not. And if he does, it's because he's gotten rid of enough of them. And that's why we're getting away from the opposition. In general, due to mobility, people no longer show up to Mass to be seen by their family members and neighbors. Such attendance was obligation, not worship. As Daniel Dennett calls it, it was a belief in the belief of God, not actual faith. That was the triumph of the Tridentine, that people felt they had to go. Now they go because they want to. People prefer worship that is familiar. For instance, going to an Anglican church whose sacraments are still valid is off-putting because the music is different, at least for me. Truly, it's all about the tunes. I got into a Twitter debate Friday with anti-modernists. Such dialogues cause you to think at some point rather than simply repeat the same beliefs you have previously stated. Here's the gist from my end, and this is a long one, so it may be in two parts. So modernism, which people call out, is a specific thing named by Pius X that has nothing to do with St. John's Council or St. John's Paul's attempt at counter-revolution and Francis finally bringing the council to life. Technically, what is called modernism was a heresy that did not exist from the fevered mind of Pius the 10th and his curia. They essentially describe Protestantism, not a movement in a church at any time. Modernization, the seeing of the world as it is no heresy. Protestantism probably isn't either. The reaction to to it was a vain exercise in scholasticism and nostalgia in reaction to Darwin, biblical and moral scholarship by other than clergy, and to democracy and the existence of individual rights in general. That opposition to the modern failed, as it has to, because such opposition comes from false places. Now, we talked about God as concept. God as concept is called theodicy. It develops as we do. Every doctrine is recreated as society evolves. That is simply clear-eyed epistemology. What reality is between these things. It's in the brain. So everybody, individual, has their own reality as far as what the church says. We think using language, and language changes from one generation to the next. So the same brain in 1901 or 1922 doesn't even exist in 2022. You can't have the same perspective. You don't have the same language. Even in Latin, which tried to freeze meaning, translations, what people thought of Latin, changed. So is this sociology? Yeah, kind of. And sociology includes. Back up. Now, some people said this was Gnosticism for me to say that. That Gnosticism is, the belief that, we have hidden knowledge. It's not hidden knowledge, it's just knowledge. And that was a label that people talked about modernism. There was no Gnostic party in the church. They didn't say, we are Gnostics and we are proud of it. No, they don't say that. They didn't self-identify. And even then, we're talking to, true belief is about group dynamics, and it's not important in the scheme of things. What we believe is a group is literally a matter for the group. It's not a matter that God really cares about unless we start using it to kill each other. So sociology, again, includes the study of religion as a group dynamic. The humans who believe a religion. So, sociology studies that. Theology is about God, and you confuse the two at your own peril. The goats at the last judgment are the true believers, the ones who say, but we knew you, Jesus. And it's like, well, you didn't see me when I was poor, so you don't. So people are collapsing, in the traditional side, are collapsing faith in God with loyalty to the hierarchy. If you wish to be among the goats on the last day, that is your privilege. That version of God is needy. God is not codependent, which is what the trads seem to think he is. His commandment was loving, not judging. And people who go down the trust the church are just digging a bigger hole. Salvation as transactional is what diminishes God. Jesus called for perfect love, which is of the Father. There's nothing Gnostic about that. It's right in the scriptures. Be perfect as your Father is perfect. That was in the Gospels. Come to me because I am gentle and humble of heart. My yoke is easy and my burden light. Jesus wasn't talking about Jesus. Jesus was talking about God, because he and the Father, again, are one. So when he said I, he was meaning the divine I, not the Jesus I. So my interlocutor then said, I think therefore I am seems to be your gospel. Again, he's conflating epistemology with theology. Indeed, that little bit of Cartesian wisdom has been overturned by neuroscience. Our brains think first, then our consciousness notices. In this life, the mind, the body, and the soul are one. It's not your soul's over here and your body's over here, and the soul's controlling the body. That just doesn't exist. The data's not there to show it. We know scientifically that we have a materialistic soul which starts at gastrulation and ends with the permanent end of brain function, which which is when we start to rot. This bit of soul is electrochemical. What is spiritual is beyond the realm of science. We cannot know except by common faith. In the resurrection, there is that there is anything else. Near-death experiences may provide hints, but they cannot be measured. Grace cannot be either. Both, however, can be reported. And I'm going to turn off the sound of my phone. Okay, I'm back. My phone is now off, or it's on pause. So where are we? I think therefore I am. So he was again conflating theology and spiritual epistemology, and I was getting back to the materialistic soul, being electrochemical. So what is spiritual is beyond the realm of science. We cannot know except by common faith, both in the resurrection, that there's anything else. NDAs may provide hints, but they cannot be measured. Grace cannot be either. However, both can be reported. And that other thing that can be reported, by the way, is continued grace. Like I said in the outset, the proof of the verity of the church is that regardless of how the bishops try to destroy the church and make it their own little toy, people keep, receiving the sacraments and finding joy in them. Which is no small feat. Shows that God's there even if the bishops aren't with God. So God is with all of us. I think I am. No, I'll go do one more little piece here. So my interlocutors ask me, why did I just leave? That would be Protestant. Protestants leave. My baptism is valid as those of the bishops, the priests, the traditionalists. I don't have to leave. It's my church too. Protestants are sectarian. They leave. Existentialism is interesting in a religious context. It requires authentic faith rather than obedience and certainty. It is the narrow door. The people are the church, not just the hierarchy. The trads turn faith into an intellectual exercise rather than dependence on God. His eyes are on the sparrow, as the spiritual goes. Not a sparrow falls, but God notices. Ezekiel said it best: "If my brother sins and I do not warn him, then I bear his guilt." Actually, it's I die. So suspend belief on how that jives with what I say on morality, because I'm a little more humanist about that. So I don't think God punishes those who do evil, either in this life or the next. If I warn them, the bishops, then they bear the consequences of their errors. Protestants walk out. I am not going. Why would I give them the satisfaction? I will not accept what amounts to ecclesiastical bullying. And I will stop here, and there will be a part 2 as promised. Thanks much. See you in the next video, which hopefully will be soon. In fact, it'll be next, but click soon.